Hello friends, I am Dr. Rakhi Gupta and welcome to my module on managing human resource or human resource management. In my previous lecture, I gave you the concept of industrial relation, that what is the meaning of industrial relation is basically the relationship that exists between the employers, employees, trade unions and the government. And we also discussed the different kind of approaches to IR. I'm reiterating myself that however there is a different subject of industrial relation and labor laws, but I thought of giving you an overview of the basic concepts of IR, because if you are studying anything related with HRM, so you should also have the concept or knowledge of industrial relation. So my main purpose is to just to make you acquainted with the concepts of industrial relation. So in this lecture today also, my dear friends, I am going to continue with more concepts of industrial relation. We know that industrial relation now, people also call it as employment relation, if you remember, employment relations or relationships. So here we know that industrial relationship is basically a very complex and a dynamic and an interdependent relationship that exists between three parties. It's employers, employees and the government. So here we are going to talk about that what are the features of or nature of industrial relation. The first one is the dynamic interaction. Now, why are we talking about the dynamic interaction? Because here it's an ongoing discussion. Every time it keeps on and on. So, at times the discussions are written, at times the discussions are verbal, or maybe the bargainings, they may be oral or they may be written. So, this happens to be a very dynamic function, and we have to understand that since we are talking about the relationship that is existing between the three of them, this happens to be a very complex one, and naturally here the main purpose is to safeguard the interest of both the management and the workers with the help of mutual understanding and goodwill. So whenever that kind of thing is happening, so it becomes very dynamic. And as I told you, the main purpose is to safeguard. Please understand the safeguard. So whether it is the trade unions or whether it is the IR, so everyone is aiming at the safeguarding the interest of the people who are working in the organization. And all these people, they are also influenced by the many factors. There can be economic, social, psychological, technological, political, and at times also the occupational factors. So that is why it's all a very dynamic interaction. The second one is the regulatory framework. The nature of IR is such that it has the roots in regulatory framework provided by labor laws and legislations. These laws form legal infrastructure for labor legislation such as employment standard, dispute resolution, workers' rights, so on and so forth. As I told you all that my main purpose is to just to give you a bird's eye view. However, there were a number of acts which were there for the health, safety and welfare of the workers, but now the labor codes have come into existence. For example, there used to be Factories Act of 1948, Workmen Compensation Act of 1923, Social Security Acts, Provident Act, Gratuity Act, so on and so forth. So why are we talking about the legal framework? Because all the organizations, they have to work within the purview of the these acts only. The next one is the conflict and cooperation. In the previous lecture also I told you that when employers are there, employees are there, so this industrial relation is no more confined to the industries. Please mind it. It is for the non-industrial units also, or any kind of employment relationship that exists between the management and the workers or the employees. So people, when they are working in any organization or in any firm, so naturally these conflicts, they are very common. So one of the features or the striking features of IR is the conflicts. There will be conflicts, and of course they have to cooperate, or they have to come to common grounds of settlement of these conflicts. So it's actually the conflict and the cooperation among the employer and employees, and these conflicts can come up over any issues related with the employment issues only. Then another striking feature of IR is the collective bargaining. So collective bargaining means, collective means both the workers and the management, they will sit across the table and they will bargain. What is the meaning of bargain? Something you are saying, the other one will not understand. The other one says this will happen, the other one will accept it or counter it. So they are actually negotiating. So that is the word for bargaining. So bargaining basically means negotiating what? So they are actually negotiating the terms of employment, how the terms of employment they should be, and they have to come down to the common conclusion. And as I told you that the main purpose of any kind of collective bargaining or IR is to avoid any kind of misunderstanding, conflict, grievances. Why are we talking about them? Because we have to develop a very, very harmonious relationship in the industry that will eventually lead to higher productivity. The next feature of IR is all related with adaptability and change, is adaptive in nature as it leads to respond to the labor market fluctuation or maybe the technological factors. So as I told you that there has to be a balance which has to be maintained between the management and the workers and the trade unions. But however, there can be certain outside influences also that come into play. So these influences are what? They are all related with technology, political, economical, social, so on and so forth, or psychological also at times, or occupational factors also. Then we talk about the different factors that actually affect industrial relation. Now, we know that the main purpose of any kind of industrial relation is to maintain the harmonious relationship. Reason being, we do not want to hamper our productivity in any way, and naturally, the main purpose is to minimize the losses, the damage, to improve the economic condition of the workers, to create that kind of healthy environment in the organization, and of course, to minimize the disputes also. So, there are a number of factors which are actually responsible for them also. For example, it talks about the individual behavior. This actually explains that every person has a different perception, background, skill, knowledge, experience and achievement which they bring in the organization. So, every individual thinks in a different manner, so they will be behaving in a different way. So, the behavior of an organization's management also has a very, very significant impact on the determination of the nature of employment relationship in an organization, that is between the management and the workers. Then we talk about the organizational structure. Now, when we are talking about the organizational structure, naturally, it all depends upon the organizational kind of culture that is there, or it also dependent upon the kind of reputation the company is holding. So, in case if we talk about the culture or if we talk about the structure, so we know that it's a kind of an like in case if you're talking about the culture, so it's more of a positive and inclusive culture that is acceptable, and it is that kind of culture that will definitely foster open communication, and it can promote collaboration and then enhance the relationship. And when we are talking about the structure, this can be, as I told you, it can be related with the culture also, or it can be what kind of structure. So, if it is a very, very complex one or very huge, then naturally there will be number of factors that will be playing its own part. And at times that you know, in the organization structure also we can have something known as the organizational reputation. So, every organization is holding a different kind of goodwill outside the organization that actually communicates about the business or the processes or the values that company is actually holding. So, again these type of culture and the reputation that company is holding, and the maybe the line structure, functional structure, they also have an impact on the industrial relation. Then we have another factor that goes into you know, deciding the industrial relation is the psychological factors. So, psychological factors, they are all related to, for example, motivation or maybe morale or maybe learning or maybe perception, so on and so forth. So, they also have an impact on the industrial relation. Under these psychological factors, things related with like for example, management's mentality, or how do they view laborers or workers, what is their demeanor towards the work, or what is their attitude, or what is their mentality towards the work process or maybe the people. So, if the psychology is good enough, so or they have that kind of humane nature, so naturally they will be able to empathize, and then they will be able to do justice to the people. Then the next one that we have, it's all related with the leadership style. We know that we have already done a chapter on this. We know that leadership is nothing but it's just the act of influencing and influencing. So, leadership style also plays a very crucial role in shaping the employment relationship. For example, we are always looking for that kind of supportive and participatory leadership. So if there is supportive and participatory leadership, then definitely people will be encouraged, they will feel that sense of belongingness, the TRS would be high, and then naturally there would be a better way of problem solving or decision making. Thus, it's going to impact the relationship. And one thing I would also like to put it across to you, my dear friends, that effective leadership and the management practices that are actually done in the organization, they also have a very significant impact on the employee relations in non-union firms also. So if leaders, they are able to communicate properly, they are able to solve the problems, and they can handle the situation or the tensions, then naturally there is no need of trade unions. So if leader is good, lot of problems they can be avoided. The next one that we have, the economical and the technical environment. So naturally the environment in which the organization will work also has a great impact, because if the organization is working too technical organization or too high technology is being employed, then naturally at times the workers who are old or who are not apt or who are not abreast with the technological updates, they may be, or maybe their job is at stake. So they may resort to certain unwanted activities. And lastly, we know that legal and political environment. So of course, a lot of trade unions here. Please understand what is more important is trade unions. These trade unions, they are at times connected to certain political parties, and these political parties, they play their own role, or they grind their own axes, or they try to get their own motives served with the help of these trade unions. So if politically they are involved, then of course there will be a lot of interference, and because of the interference, naturally the relationship would be suffering. So what in other words we can say is that political factors basically which refer to the government system and parties' involvement in unions, they also shape the industrial relation. And naturally, as far as this political factors they are concerned, so political people, they have a different way of thinking, the mentality of the public authority and how they administer it, how they deal it, and how do they get their work done. So these are the factors which have to be taken into consideration. So next is like what are the main objectives of the industrial relation? Of course, to ensure fair employment practices. The main purpose is to safeguard the interest of both the management and labor, and naturally to avoid any kind of misunderstandings, the conflicts or the grievances, and above all to have a good cordial relationship between the two, discussing or taking into cognizance the working conditions and the job security standards. So it can be health, safety and welfare measures that have to be taken into consideration. Ultimately, we are also aiming at the improvement of the economic condition of the people. The second objective of industrial relation is talking about enhancing communication and cooperation. Of course, we know that the main aim is to remove any kind of bottlenecks that come in way of effective IR. So we want to reduce any kind of misunderstanding or any grievances or any kind of dispute or any kind of conflict. So if they are removed, then only we can think of the harmonious relations in the industry. So that is why it is said that we have to be very, very careful, and the free flow of communication should actually be encouraged by the management also. And of course, the workers should be given a chance to give their feedback, views, suggestions, so on and so forth. So this is very essential. Then facilitate conflict resolution. So conflict can be because of the terms of employment, or it can be because of lack of communication. So whatever the reason is, the solution has to be arrived at. Then we talk about the insurance of compliances with labor laws. My dear friends, it is very essential that one of the objectives of IR is that the organizations or the industry, they follow the labor laws which have been actually initiated by the government. And now of course the acts, for example, Factories Act, Workmen Compensation Act, Employee State Insurance Act, so on and so forth, or anything related with bonus or anything related with wages. We are trying to give you a bird's eye view of all these acts. So why these acts have been actually enacted? So these acts have been enacted so that they can be implemented for the welfare of the people. So one of the objectives of IR is to ensure the effective implementation of these labor laws or labor codes. Then foster a positive work environment. Of course, we are looking forward for the conducive environment. So once we have that kind of conducive environment, we can engage the employees and we are thinking about their well-being also. So naturally, it will boost their trust, respect and support. The motivation level will be high. Then of course, the rate of absenteeism will be down. The rate of turnover will be down. That is what we are actually aiming at. So definitely we are trying to create very, very healthy relationship between both of them by minimizing the disputes, helping them to communicate, by improving the economic conditions, and of course establishing that kind of peace also. So, as far as the scope of industrial relation is concerned, we just discussed the objectives. So, in a nutshell, we know that any kind of organization is there. The main purpose is to foster good, healthy relationship between the two. We are trying to avoid any kind of conflicts, any kind of strike, or we are trying to give some kind of opportunity to the workers also to participate. If you remember, we have done the workers' participation in management. We are trying to enhance the productivity, and of course, we are also talking about the peace in the industry. So what is the scope of industrial relation? So naturally, when we are talking about the scope, what is more important is that the management policies and programs, they have to be proper. The public relations have to be maintained, labor relations have to be maintained. It is helpful in the recruitment, selection also, to provide medical health related services. If you remember, health, safety and welfare. All these things, they have actually been discussed in the Factories Act of 1948. So if you want to get more details about that, you can read that act. And naturally, in the this industrial relation is to maintain the employment records of the employee, test, ability test, provision of training. So all these things, if it is only possible when the relationship is very good. So naturally, why we are talking about all these industrial relation is we are looking forward to the organization which is very idle, which is very productive, thinking about the people, giving them the growth and development opportunities, thinking about their work environment, about their working conditions, thinking about their health, safety, welfare, so on and so forth. And definitely we know that the tensions and the conflicts, they are inevitable part of any industrial unit or any organization. So naturally, we do not wish to create any kind of stress or pressure, or we do not want any kind of resistance coming up from the people. So that is, if both the parties, they follow what is expected out of them, then naturally we can always build the world-class organization. Now, let's have a look at it, that what is the importance of IR. Naturally, the first one is the promoting the democracy. So it's like employing collective bargaining. So bargaining is basically nothing, but it is all just related with negotiating. And what are we negotiating? We are negotiating the terms of employment. We are just negotiating the terms of employment, and this collective bargaining is generally employed through cooperation and mutual agreement. I have a thought of having a separate session on collective bargaining, then we talk about it at length. Then importance of industrial relation is high morale. We know that talking about TRS, trust, respect and support, and then the motivation level of individual is also very high, and definitely it is also boosting up the morale of the entire group. So why do we think that industrial relation is important? Because it will be giving us the fair chance that the organization should be very fair, or it should be able to deal with any kind of problem in a better way. So industrial relation is very, very essential in promoting that kind of fairness. And of course, in view of the good industrial relations, the employees and workers, they are always motivated to take up the increased ownership for their jobs at every time. But it is only possible when they are treated fairly and equally. That is very essential. The second point that you see on the screen is related with the enhancement of the workplace harmony. So this harmony is only possible when there exists peace, and peace is only maintained when both the parties, they do what is actually expected out of them too. And of course, it is also related with the industrial disputes also. The aim of IR is to reduce the disputes to the minimum, so that they can be kind of a mutual trust. There is a lot of active participation, lot of good communication taking place. There is mutual respect, mutual appreciation, and of course, the management is able to get what they intend to do, or we can say the objectives of the company they are achieved. Then ensuring the legal compliances encourages organizational stability. This is very important. If peace and democracy is not maintained, then the organization cannot think about the stability. So it is only possible when there is conducive environment, when there is harmonious relationship existing between the two, and there are no strikes, no gheraos, no picketing, no layoffs, no lockouts. If it is not there, only then the organization can think about having a very, very stable organization. So naturally, here again, I'm trying to emphasize that good industrial relations actually impact employees' engagement also. So it's like industrial peace actually lies ultimately in the hands of the workers and the employers. So it is a very, very imperative part of the company's leadership to take a call on that. So how do they maintain that peace, the democracy, how to maintain their harmonious relationship? Definitely, and these harmonious relationship will definitely boost up the morale also. And we all know that morale is directly related with productivity. We've already done a chapter on this earlier also. So here what is more important is that every worker should get the feeling that yes, this is my organization and I am the co-owner of the gains of this industry. So if they have that kind of feeling, only then they will be performing well and there will be peace and harmony maintained. Improves employee engagement, how they are made to participate in the affairs of the organization. We've already done a chapter on this, and this participation or engagement, it can be in the form of association, informative, or maybe having a representative on the board also. So naturally, industrial relationship, they are maintained on the basis of the cooperation and recognition of each other. So when management recognizes the value of the workers and they are giving them a chance to be part of the decision making, only then we can avoid any kind of dispute or strikes or anything which is very negative. Then, of course, we are avoiding the conflicts, minimizing the wastages, very important, because whenever the wastages are there, it will automatically hit the productivity. And when the productivity is getting hit, that is not at all something to relish about. So good industrial relations will be maintained on the basis of the cooperation and recognition, as I told you earlier. It will help us to increase the production, wastage of man, material, machines, they have to be minimized. And once they are minimized, only then the national interest is actually protected. So that's how it's important. Then economic growth and development. Naturally, good harmonious industrial relation will result in the increased efficiency and prosperity. So when the organization is growing, naturally the organization is contributing something or the other to the nation also. Then there can be some other kind of functions also of industrial relation to establish the communication, sound relationship between the two, support. Again, TRS, trust, respect and support. If there is no support of each other in the organization, then please mind it that the activities performed by either by the management or by the workers, definitely they would not be very nice. Ultimately, there would not be any kind of optimum utilization of the resources, and there would be no improvement in the efficiencies and the productivities, which will definitely impact the company's bottom lines. So in order to avoid that, that kind of support is very, very essential. And then to ensure the creative contribution of trade union also. So by this time, you know that trade union are nothing but they are the kind of a platform through which the workers, they raise their voices. And of course, if management wants that they are able to dictate their terms, then naturally they have to take into consideration, or they have to get the trade unions in their favor also. And then of course that is very, very important for the smooth running of the entire organization. And because again, who is going to run the organization? It's none other than the workers, the employees or the workmen. Then to safeguard the interest of the workers and the management, both of them, they are very, very powerful. Both of them, they have their own weapons in their hands. For example, management, they can go for layoff, they can go for retrenchment, they can go for lockouts, and workers, they can go for example, strikes, Gheraos, picketing, stone pelting, so on and so forth, so which is not at all desirable. And to avoid any unhealthy, unethical atmosphere in the industry, this is for the purpose of maintaining the peace, to formulate consideration that promote understanding, creativity and cooperativeness to enhance the industrial efficiency. So, of course, and to ensure better workers' participation, I hope now you know what is the meaning of participation. We've already done a chapter on this. So, if workers, they are made to feel important in an organization, so naturally then they will be contributing their best. Then, since we spoke about the trade union, I want to focus on one thing, that what are the functions of the trade union promoting the relationship, because they play a paramount important role. So, what are they actually doing? Because it's a kind of a common platform where everyone is there and they have lot of unity, and these trade unions, they are very, very powerful. So actually they ensure fair wages to the workers. Then they are talking about the improving the working condition. It can be related with, anything related with team building or training, or maybe their physical environment in which they are working. It can be related with drinking water, staircases, maintenance, so on and so forth. And of course, to safeguard the security of the workers and to promote educational facilities. This is very important for their growth and development. It's very important for the growth and development. So, my dear friends, we know that basically trade unions, they play a very crucial role, as I told you. So, we cannot bypass the importance of trade unions. So, even if management thinks that they can proceed without a trade union, then they are highly mistaken if they have a very, very huge and large number of people working under them. Lastly, heading towards the closure, there are certain challenges which are also faced by the IR. That is, the kind of nature of the work is very complex, very risky. So again, it's very difficult to tell people, or if the management, they fail to provide them with the PPE, personal protection equipment, or if there is dissatisfactory compensation. So we have already done that, the pay and salary part. So if people are not happy with the kind of compensation that they are being paid, naturally it is a big, big limitation or a challenge in IR. Then the harmonious relationship cannot be maintained. Their work condition, the environment in which they are supposed to work, anything which is related with health and safety. So when we are talking about work conditions, so it can be related with the health, safety and welfare. And if you want to know more about them, please go and read Factories Act of 1948, where probably from section 11 to section 40, it talks about the health, safety, welfare. Then non-conducive organizational climate, supposing if there is faulty management. For example, it's all related with the leadership. The leadership is quite autocratic. Now, I hope you also know what is the meaning of autocratic, the bossy attitude, so on and so forth. Then also they pose a challenge in the effective IR. Then again, we cannot have that kind of good culture, organizational culture. And if it is missing, then the IR is also missing, my dear friends. Then employer flexibility. If employer is very rigid with their policies, procedures, structures, so on and so forth, then again IR cannot be maintained. And of course, the dysfunctional of trade unions. If trade unions only they fail in uniting the people or mediating between the management and the workers, or if they are too influenced by the political parties, then we cannot think of having a good industrial relation. So ideally what we know is that these are the challenges that are actually posed by the IR. So in order to have a very, very conducive environment, it's very, very essential that the relationship between the management and the workers or the employees, it's conducive. And there are a number of ways by which we can actually improve them. There are a number of ways by which we can actually satiate or satisfy the workers or people in the organization to give their best towards the attainment of the common goals of the company. So that's all that I have for you in this lecture. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you so much.